You can think about the Beatitudes of Jesus as the table of contents for the Sermon on the Mount. When you start a book, hopefully you read the table of contents. It tells what's going to come in the rest of the book. Well, the Sermon on the Mount functions the same way. In fact, every one of the Beatitudes, the way I used to read the Beatitudes is that this is kind of like pearls on a string, sort of disconnected from one another. But actually, everything that happens in the Beatitudes comes out later in the Sermon on the Mount. There's no part of the Sermon on the Mount that is not first surfaced in the Beatitudes. Every single one of the Beatitudes is fleshed out later in the Sermon on the Mount in reverse order. So when he talks about being poor in spirit, I'm going to talk about what that means in just a moment. When you get to chapter 7, he's going to give you more information about what that means. When he talks about mourning and being humble, he's going to talk in chapter 6 about what that means. When he talks about being pure in heart, he's going to talk about in chapter 5 what that means. So everything in the Beatitudes is going to be fleshed out later. So if you get the Beatitudes, you get the sermon. If you understand what's happening in the Beatitudes, you actually understand what's going to come later in the Sermon on the Mount. The other thing that's interesting about the Beatitudes is that these are not sort of random proverbs. There is a logical connection and flow from the beginning to the end of the Beatitudes that I'm going to show you here in just a second. But what is a Beatitude? The Beatitudes, that's just the name that we give to those blessednesses that Jesus is talking. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who mourn. Beatitude is from a Latin word meaning blessed. So that's where we get the word Beatitudes. And this is how Jesus begins the sermon. He repeats the word blessed 8 times